what has happened in Iran, the new supreme leader of Iran, the son of Ali Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he he's Donald Trump. It seems that he's not happy with the new supreme leader of Iran, and here is what was reported on Fox News.
The Ayatollah's son as its new supreme leader. He's a hardline cleric, widely considered more radical than his dad.
President Trump warning, quote, he's going to have to get approval from us. If he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long.
Former ambassador at...
Yeah.
Notice the irony. On the one hand, they use the pretext to justify attacking Iran because Iran tried to kill the president, which they didn't. I mean, that's another damn lie. And then we turn around and talk just openly about killing any leader, any president we want. So which is it? Is it wrong, or is it just depends on who's doing it? This Trump's increasingly erratic behavior over the course of the last week and a half since the start of this war is alarming. Personally, I think that they need to invoke the 25th Amendment. He needs to be removed because he's saying delusional stuff like that. The United States gets to have a say in who the leader of Iran is. I mean, we'll give Trump credit. At least he's being upfront about what we've been doing for the last, 73 years. In terms of installing, removing people, putting in the people we want, trying to control the situation. But it's still wrong.
Larry, do you feel that the war of attrition has started, or we are still in the initial phase of the conflict? We don't know if it would be a war of attrition or not. How do you see the battlefield right now? Because as we see Iran, Tehran, they were attacking Tehran, many bombings in Tehran, in Israel as well. We see not that much of footage coming out of Israel, but from what we've heard so far, that the devastation is happening on both sides. And what is the battlefield, and what is the plan on the part of? We had Secretary of War, not Defense anymore, Pete Hegseth on 60 Minutes. What is your understanding of the head of Pentagon, of Donald Trump right now?
Well, there is no clear strategy. So they're just riffing like a jazz musician, only a bad jazz musician. Let's look at the difference between Iran and Israel. So Iran, you got 91 million people. The largest city is Tehran with between 10 and 12 million, depending upon who you're talking to, what the source is. But Iran, beyond that, just does not have a lot of cities that are with populations greater than a million, correct?
Yeah.
So you've got the rest of, let's say, the rest of the 80, 75 million people they're spread out around the country. They're not concentrated in one area.
Larry, when it comes to, let me say something, because it happens a lot on this podcast. Many people are arguing that when they're talking about various ethnicities in Iran, they say Kurd, Arabs, Azeri, Lur. Basically, all these Lur, Bakhtiyari, Lur, all of them, they consider themselves as Persian. They don't consider them as a different ethnicity in Iran.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and then on top of that, but the majority of the population, 61% of Iran is actually Persian. And I think another 19% are Azeri. And as you've noted before, the Ayatollah Khamenei and the new Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei are Azeri. So, it's not like this, they are some distinct outsiders, not in sync with the Persian culture. But my point is that if the United States, the goal with military attacks is to try to affect as much of the population as possible. And the fact that 70%, 80% of the Iranian population are scattered across the country. In Israel, you've got 75% of the population, maybe it's closer to 80, concentrated in Tel Aviv and Haifa. So as opposed to the West having to attack literally hundreds of different targets in an effort to sap the will of the Iranian people, Iran's only got to hit 2. And they've been doing that repeatedly, day after day after day. And the Israelis are suffering. They're sending signals. They want a ceasefire, and they're not going to get a ceasefire this time. Last June, during the 12-day war, at the end, Iran was willing to entertain a ceasefire because they had got indications from the United States that the U.S. would be serious about negotiations going forward. Turns out the U.S. lied again. And that's why as this continues, the war of attrition started this last week. Nobody would have imagined that Iran would take out those 5 radars, the TSP and the FPS. They're both, one of them costs $500 million, and the other one costs over $1 billion. And I think at least 2 of the TSP, they call them Tipsy, were taken out, and 3 of the other, the FPS, were taken out. Well, that has blinded both the United States and Israel. In the past, Israel would have like a 30-minute warning that, hey, inbound missiles. Not now. They're getting warning, a minute warning before it hits. So the United States has been attrited effectively of its radar capability, which then affects its other, military operations, at least on the defensive side of the house. And then they can no longer operate in the bases. They counted on having a presence in the Persian Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, and even in the United Arab Emirates. That's becoming untenable. And the shutdown of the Persian Gulf to maritime traffic means that the ability of Saudi Arabia, but particularly Qatar and United Arab Emirates, to continue living as normal that's over. They're facing severe shortages of food within a week, shortages of water potentially, because of the attack that took place on the Iranian desalination plant. Iran has vowed that it's going to respond in kind, just as Iran warned, don't attack our oil facilities. What do? The United States attacked Iran, or I guess it was Israel that attacked the oil facility, and in retaliation, Iran has now hit the oil facilities in Bahrain and Kuwait. And so that's going to compound the problem that the world faces of an oil shortage. And then today, the United States has doubled down and making it an even bigger problem. They've gone after Iranian oil tankers. I've heard it's now 3, and blown them up or sinking them. Now, apart from the environmental damage that's going to cause, that takes more oil off the market. So we're going to be in a full-blown economic crisis, global economic crisis. We've got historical evidence from the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and then the Russia's attack on Ukraine in February 2022, the start of the special military operation. In both occasions, the price of oil spiked quite high, but then it came down. But when it spiked high in those occasions, the oil was still being pumped from the ground. The oil was still being loaded on ships. The ships were still able to sail out of the Persian Gulf. Not now. That's now completely changed. There's nothing. They're shutting down the pumping because they can only store so much, and then once their storage tanks are full, then they just got to shut the actual pumps down. But there's nothing coming out of the Persian Gulf. I mean, so 21% that you were counting on, poof, gone. And that's really created some interesting dynamics. This is helping Russia tremendously. I mean, Russia economy is just going to be booming with this bonus money that's coming its way. India is in trouble, and Modi foolishly thought I don't know what he was thinking, but he decided it was going to be a great idea to go to Israel and put his lips firmly on the rear end, the butt of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and sucking up to them, bowing and scraping like some house servant. We'll call him the house Indian. Clap your hands, wiper, come here. He signed these number of agreements and cooperation and great friendship. And then when the attack came on Iran, didn't say a damn word, not one word. But now realized, oh my God, 80% of our oil comes out of the Persian Gulf. What are we going to do? In the past, India played this game where they tell the United States, oh, we're going to stop buying Russian oil. And then they'd go behind the back and tell the Russians, hey, we're under these sanctions, but we'll buy your oil, but you got to give us a discount. And so Russia said, okay, we'll give you a discount. Well, this time, now after going in and just making a complete obsequious, sycophantic fool of himself, Modi now realizes, oh my God, our oil supply is now cut off. We got to have oil. We got to have liquid natural gas. Turns back to Russia. And, the United States reversed itself. Instead of saying, oh, you got to follow all of these sanctions and against Russia, they say, oh, we're removing the sanctions so Russia can now sell oil. And Russia's told India, hey, great, welcome back. Happy to help you. But you remember that discount? We used to give you like a $3 or $4 per barrel discount. And so instead of paying $59, you're paying $55. Well, now the cost is up to $85 a barrel, and you're going to have to pay a $5 premium. Now, I guarantee you, if India had not gone to Israel, had not basically betrayed BRICS, Russia would have made them a deal. They would have said, hey, the price of oil is way up, but we're not going to make you pay full price. So India's paying a price for this, and that's where it's starting to spill over. But what are the Philippines going to do? They're dependent. 94% of their oil comes out of the Persian Gulf, and despite Trump's vows that they're going to open this Strait of Hormuz, I don't see how, because it's not like Iran sitting out there with a line of boats saying, you got to stop. You're not going to pass us. They put the word out. Anybody tries to go through here, we're going to blow them out of the water, which they have been doing.
I think the people, those people, Russia haters and Iran haters in the United States, they're so much confused. They don't know what to do. Lindsey Graham came out and said to Israel, he said to our friends in Israel, don't attack. My advice would be not to attack oil facilities, because we want Iran in its entirety. We want all of Iran with all these resources. We cannot, How do you think, Larry, that they have a solution for what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz? Because French president, he came out, Macron, he says that France is planning a purely defensive mission to gradually reopen the Strait of Here is what he said, Larry.
And we're also setting up, as we speak, a purely defensive mission. This is a support mission, the purpose of which is to work with other European and indeed non-European states. The purpose, again, as soon as possible, when we pull out of the more intensive part of the conflict, to provide escorts, container ships to gradually reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is, of course, a passage for international trade, but also a passage for oil and gas, which should be able to come out of the region. So we are working on this mission. We're preparing it with our partners. This will take place in good order, and we've started discussing this. This is a peaceful defensive mission, where it's a support mission, but indeed it is essential for our economies and indeed for the global economy at large.
Yeah. The question is that Europe, that has removed itself from all the calculations in the West Asia, I see no policies considering Europe right now in Iran, for example. And I don't see the Arab states even consider them as a viable choice to go to talk with them. That's why they're talking with Vladimir Putin. They're not talking with Europeans. And they somehow feeling that they can do something in the Strait of Hormuz. What is the mission, in your opinion? What is he talking about?
I have no idea. I think he's, he's reputed to be a user of cocaine. Maybe he's on a cocaine high. What are the, so let's follow the scenario. And this is how much the situation has changed over the course of, 39 years. Was that, yeah. Let's go back to 1987. The Iran-Iraq war is underway, and the West, particularly the United States, is providing extensive support to Iraq. Iran is fighting back virtually sort of on its own. And so Iran tried to shut down the flow of oil out of the Persian Gulf as a way to put pressure on the West. And they started laying mines. They had a ship called the Iran Ajar that was laying mines. So what the West did is they set up, there's a floating barge called an oil service barge called the Hercules, a Navy SEAL unit with helicopters from the 160th Special Operations Wing of the Air Force were on that barge. And how do I know this? Because a good friend of mine was the commander of that unit. He was a lieutenant commander at the time. And they carried out military operations against Iran. Well, Iran didn't have missiles back then, didn't really have the ability. They tried to attack it with gunboats. Those were repelled. Well, that's not the case today. Any of these French ships sell in there, Iran's got anti-ship missiles that are in caves that align the shore of Iran. It's got drones. And, nobody in the West has the ability to shoot down all those drones. Just don't. And the drones can do significant damage to these ships. So, and if there's extended combat, there's not an insurer in the world that's going to allow a ship to go through there. So they're going to remain cut down. But the fact that both Qatar, United Arab Emirates, they're going to run out of food because they're heavily dependent upon the ships that come in when bringing food from other countries. And if Iran proceeds with retaliating on the desalinization plants, because the West, the U.S. and Israel attacked Iranian desalinization plant yesterday, then the Gulf Arabs are completely screwed. They're going to be without water. You'll have a human catastrophe unfolding.
Here is the desalination, Larry, in these various countries in the Persian Gulf. You see Kuwait being 90% dependent. Oman, which is not part of the, the conflict. We see Israel 75%, Saudi Arabia 70%, and goes down to UAE 42%.
Yeah.
Iran's dependence on desalination is 2%.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is Iran is playing the tit for tat game. You hit us in an area, we're going to hit you back. They've already hit the oil refineries in Bahrain and Kuwait. And, so we've never faced a situation like this in the history of the modern world since oil became a thing. The embargo that was self-imposed by OPEC as a way to put pressure on the West, where to say, okay, well, we're not going to let you have our oil. We're just going to sit on it. That's one thing. But this is literally, you're turning off the pumps and you're destroying product that once it's destroyed, you can't, is not easily replaced. And nothing's coming out of the Gulf, or at least nothing for the rest of the world. Some ships bearing oil for China, they're allowed to leave. Iranian oil tankers, they've been allowed to leave. Now, if the West doesn't embark, okay, we're going to start attacking these tankers. Great. Iran will return the favor. It will destroy the other tankers. And it's going to send whatever you do to us, we're going to do to you, and we're going to do it worse.